Right. Thanks again, everybody, for tuning into this podcast. This time I'm joined by Tim Chapple. How are you doing?
I'm pretty good, thank you.
Brilliant. Brilliant. So, from what I can gather, Tim, you're a bass player. Is that right?
Yeah. I mean, I always wanted to be a guitarist and a drummer, but I sort of ended up as a bassist by default, really.
Okay. Do you want to sort of, for the sake of the viewers and stuff, explain your musical beginnings, how you got into music and all that sort of stuff?
Yeah, well, I'm an old fella, so my music roots go right back to probably about the 1970s.
Right.
Sort of grew up on a diet of Bowie, Slade, Mott the Hoople, that kind of stuff, and that would have been, I guess, when I started secondary school. And rock
Right.
and roll was like, wow, it was such a big thing for me.
Right.
And later on, I sort of got a little bit more sophisticated, I suppose, and then got into things like Hawkwind, the Pink Fairies, 10 Years After, that whole blues rock thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
My hair got a bit longer. I wasn't allowed to have it very long, but it did get a bit longer.
It's superb. What was
Yeah.
your first? What was your first instrument then?
First instrument was, well, I don't know whether this counts actually, but when I was a kid, I made this guitar out of a plank of wood,
Okay.
and I couldn't play a note, and obviously it didn't work. But I had all the moves down before I ever picked up a guitar, because I used to I used to sit next to the record player and like do all the all the moves. So I had them down pretty pat before I ever learned how to play properly.
Right. Right.
But no, first guitar was off a guy at school. It was a top 20, I think. It wasn't second hand. It was probably about fifth hand, I think.
Okay.
And yeah, and I sucked big style. It took me a long time to play it.
Okay. Right. And so were you initially then when you started to play, was it sort of like the bluesy type stuff, or were you just straight rock and roll?
I was trying to play what I was listening to, which was a huge range of stuff at the time. So things like Hawkwind. I was really into Lindisfarne and sort
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
folky bands like that. And one
Okay.
of the most depressing thing was I thought all you had to do was get a guitar, take it home, and all of a sudden it would play itself.
Yeah.
And
Brilliant. Brilliant.
I was so disappointed when I got it back, and I just couldn't do anything with it.
I'm
And
assuming that was an acoustic, was it, or did you go straight electric?
uh, I uh, I had an acoustic for a while, but it just wasn't me. So the top 20 was the way to go.
Right.
But of course, that was in the days before YouTube,
Mm.
before you knew anybody. There were no contacts. You couldn't ask anybody how you played the guitar, and all you had was your albums. And
Yeah.
I think I did the only lessons I ever had in my life was I did an evening class in folk guitar, and it lasted me, I don't know, I think I did half a dozen lessons before I gave it up. But
Okay.
it sort of got me on the road, if you like.
Okay, brilliant. So what age did you swap then from the sort of electric rhythm lead to bass?
Well, we had a little band at school, and a couple of bands after that, and I was determined to be a lead player. But I haven't got the brain hookup to be a lead guitarist.
Okay.
You need to be a good lead player. You need to sort of almost switch off from where you are and just go. No, I'm
Right.
just not. I was never wired up like that. So
Okay.
they said, well, you can stay in the band, but you'll have to play bass. So
Okay.
I
That was the choice.
yeah, so I took the top two strings off, and
Okay.
that was it. That was the start of it, really.
Okay. Brilliant. I mean, I know you played with a few down here because we mentioned Tracy Story.
Yeah,
And I know
yeah.
I think you have played with Tracy in a band, I think.
Yeah, I depped with the Frame for a few gigs. Yeah.
Right. What about Ty? Have you played, with
Uh,
Ty?
uh, I've jammed with Ty and know him really well, but I've worked for years with his brother Guy.
Right, Guy.
So
Yeah,
that was Mississippi Burning, Devil's Creek,
yeah.
and recently with the Archons. So
Wow.
me and Guy go back a long way. Yeah,
Yeah, a talented couple of brothers, aren't they?
they are. Yeah,
Yes, yeah.
yeah.
Um, okay, so are you in a band or anything now? Will you? Because I think you sent me some solo stuff on the bass, wasn't it?
Well, yeah. I mean, right up until lockdown, me and Guy were doing Devil's Creek, and we were doing the Archons. So we were out, well, at least a couple of nights a week.
Right.
So I've gone from playing, being really busy, to doing absolutely nothing. So it's been a hell of a
Yes,
drop,
yeah,
really.
yeah, yeah. I mean, that's the thing, isn't it? Lockdown, musicians and lockdown. I mean, a lot of the people I've been speaking to have been saying that it's sort of given them the chance to almost concentrate on the writing of things, you know, that side.
Mm.
So did you find that helped on that side, or was it a complete like, oh, this is horrible, you know?
Well, the thing is, I've always contributed in sort of original material, but never sort of taken on the whole
Right.
thing myself. So it was a bit daunting to start with, but it was now or never, really, because you know,
Yeah.
I wasn't going to get a chance again, and there was no one else to work with, so I just went for it.
Okay. I mean, you have got a few things on YouTube, haven't you? You've got a few up.
Yeah, I'm nothing if not prolific.
Okay. Just so, I mean, I normally ask for a couple of videos on YouTube to tag on to the interview.
Yeah.
So have you got any couple you want me to put up specifically, or shall I just choose two, or?
Yeah, just choose two you think might appeal, or just
Okay.
choose two you like. One of the things that I've been quite fortunate with is that a lot of the tracks are different. So I'm sort of genre hopping, if you like. So
Okay.
sometimes they sound really sort of retro, that old 60s sort of Shadows, Link Ray, Jet Harris, that kind of thing.
Okay. Right.
And the last thing I did, which is almost goth. So, so that's, you know, it's nice to jump about and see what works and what doesn't, really.
Okay. So what software do you use then if you're recording at home?
Oh, just really basic stuff. Because I'm not technically minded, it's a Zoom R8, which is a digital recorder.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then the ridiculous thing is I don't have a monitor system. So I've got the live bass rig in the house. So the Zoom runs into a 500-watt orange head, and then runs through the. I think it's in it's 4x15 at the moment. So I beg your pardon, 4x10. But obviously you have to keep that down fairly low. And one of the ridiculous things is the fan on the orange head is actually louder than the music coming out of the speakers. So it has its own challenges. Yeah.
Right. So do you think that then when we come out of this lockdown thing that the band will take off again, each one, or?
Well, I hope so. I mean, if you know, I hope that things will go back and Guy will decide he wants to go back and do it again, and we'll get back in the gigs. But a bassist it's a funny thing, because you're reliant on working with other people, and your bass is really a way of gluing the drums to the guitar, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
And so you're acting as the middleman in the whole caboose.
Yeah.
And I'm quite happy to be towards the back. Do you know what I mean? I'm not a natural sort of out front kind of guy. But yeah, I mean, live music is where it's at for me, really.
Yeah. I think, you know, a lot of bands have been saying that. Obviously, you know, the reason why people play is to share their music, and, you know, doing it live has got to be the ultimate, you know. So, I mean, I know technology nowadays enabling things like this to happen, and people to do, you know, live feed broadcast type stuffs, but it's not the same. It isn't the same, you know.
It isn't. There's that whole thing where if you're playing with an audience, you're pushing it to the audience, and then this sounds like a very hippie thing to say, but you push it out, and then you want it back. And on a good night, you get that back from the audience. And it makes such a difference. It really does.
Brilliant. So in a sense then, lockdown for you, I mean, without getting too personal, you know, how did it go for you then? I mean, I know musically, but
yeah, well, I mean, it's been a bit of an upside down year. I mean, I don't mind admitting. We've had my wife's been had a big spell in hospital during the whole lockdown thing. So it's been it's been double whammy really. But I've got to say that the music is the one thing that's kept me sane throughout. So that sort of is the reason why it's been so prolific, really, because it's kept me going. I've been getting up in the morning and switching the recorder on and just, you know, playing away.
Brilliant. Well, you know, the time of year we got now is Christmas time. I asked this question the other night, actually, somebody. What's your favorite Christmas tune?
Probably Merry Christmas, Everybody, John Lennon, Yoko Ono. Because it's like an uplifting thing, but on the other hand, it's incredibly sad at the same time. So I'd go with that one.
Okay, brilliant. So trying to think what we've done here, what we covered. We covered musical beginnings.
I mean, the big thing for me, of course, was punk. But the big thing for me was punk. Because when we were kids, we couldn't play. And then I think I got the Ramones album, and all of a sudden it was like this huge epiphany, and like I discovered that I could play something, and that's what got me started as a musician. I think really it was punk rock. I mean, I wasn't a proper musician. I was just a punk musician.
Okay, so
but it was a start, you know.
Yeah, well, no doubt then you would have you know, been visiting the Winter Gardens and all that back then when all the punk rock was happening.
And I saw the Pistols, I saw the Damned, and of course I saw the Ramones. I mean the Winter Gardens was fantastic. I mean, they had AC/DC. The first ever gig I went to, I would have been about 15. I think it was Queen, just after Seven Seas of Ride come out.
That's it.
And I remember. Yes, I was still at school. What a fantastic night that was. Yeah, it was a good way to start.
Well, that's the thing, isn't it? I mean, we haven't really got a venue like that now, have we, down here? So
no, it was tremendous. And I think it's like all these things in music. When you go through stuff and when you get great gigs. I mean, I was in Zambula for a while, and if you've ever heard of Zambula, they were a really popular Afro rock band with Tito on vocals and Demels
and characters they are.
Dick Hannon, bless him, who's no longer with us either. It's such a shame. But you know, I mean, we used to have some tremendous gigs down there. It was fantastic. Yeah,
brilliant, absolutely.
But you sort of take all these things for granted because you think, oh well, you know, I'm doing this now. This is going to go on forever. But the one thing I have learned is you just got to seize the moment. I think because you know if you're lucky, it'll come again. But you've got to be pretty lucky.
Nice. I was going to ask you then. You know, is there any advice you'd like to give up and coming musicians? But I mean, that's a good one.
Well, I would say yes to everything you can say yes to. Because I kicked myself just thinking about some of the things I could have done and didn't, and they turned out to be bigger than I ever thought they would. You just got to go for everything and try it and see what happens.
Fantastic. So is there a band now, you know, modern band that you would like to, if you're given the opportunity to work with, be the bass player for?
Everything now to me harks back to the past. Everything I like is derivative in as much as I can hear other people.
Right.
You know, I mean, even going back a bit to like the Smiths. I mean, Johnny Marr was a great Burt Jansch and Rory Gallagher fan. And it didn't come out like Rory Gallagher, but Johnny Marr took that old stuff and then created something reasonably new with it. You know, so I always go back to the old stuff.
Right. So, so given the choice of opening up for a band from the past, you know, who would you?
God, there's so much.
There are so many. I know it's a tricky one.
Yeah. I mean, I think it really depend. It would depend on the genre, but I think something like Hawkwind in their prime, and the band for me in the 70s were the Pink Fairies. No, I never got to see the Pink Fairies, but I wore the albums out when I was school age. So you know, so that for me, they would be the band that I would love to have shared a stage with. Yeah.
Fantastic. Okay, I'm going to ask the final question, which is I ask everybody. Is there anybody you'd like to thank for you being here musically now?
Well, I mean, people always thank their parents, don't they? But mine could never really understand my musical my thoughts. I think they thought I had been abducted by aliens or something like that when I started. But all right, I think we've got, you know, they were very tolerant of, you know, a 16-year-old kid who wanted to play guitar. So they bankrolled quite a bit of gear. So I mean, I think although they didn't understand me, without them I probably wouldn't have got started.
Fantastic, man. Absolutely brilliant. No, well, thank you, Tim, for the time and you know, chatting to me and everything. It's been fascinating. Absolutely brilliant.
No worries. Could have gone for ages.
Yeah.
Let's do it again.
Yeah, nice one. All right, well, you take care and we will speak again.
All right, mate. It's great to see you.
Cheers now.